Hi, my name is Crystal Corgatelli, and this is the IRB proposal on vitamin D deficiency and athletic performance. The average person's daily activities take place predominantly indoors and include traveling from one building to another. Additionally, many of the preferred leisure activities, such as movies and streamers, are indoor activities. This has led to the limited sun exposure, making vitamin D deficiency a common worldwide problem. People with occupations that limit sun exposure are unlikely to obtain adequate vitamin D from sunlight. Athletes who train indoors the majority of the time fit into that category, and recent evidence suggests that they are at risk for poor vitamin D status. One study demonstrated that the baseline concentrations of nearly 70% of all athletes were insufficient. Now, this picture is a chart of how we spend our days here in the United States. All of the graphs I have looked at had one thing in common, and it's that we spend the majority of our leisure time watching TV. Okay, vitamin C is a fat-soluble vitamin that functions as a hormone precursor, which plays a crucial role in the regulation of calcium homeostasis, bone turnover, cardiovascular, endocrine, nervous, and immune and mental functions. Very few foods naturally contain vitamin D. To resolve this, some countries fortify milk ready to eat, breakfast cereals, some brands of orange juice, yogurt, margarine, and other food products with vitamin D. As you can see here in the picture, this sunlight is converted into vitamin D, ultraviolet B radiation with a wavelength of 290 to 320 nanometers, penetrates the uncovered skin and converts cutaneous 70 high cholesterol to free vitamin D, which in turn becomes vitamin D3. Even though this is one of the best sources of vitamin D, it is affected by season, time of day, length of day, cloud cover, smog, skin melanin content, latitudes higher than 35 degrees, and sunscreen. Finally, supplementation of vitamin D is also common, however, is most likely to cause toxicity. This can cause non-specific symptoms such as anorexia, weight loss, polyuria, heart arrhythmias. A serum concentration of greater than 500 nanomoles per liter is considered to be potentially toxic. Excessive sun exposure, however, does not result in vitamin D toxicity. This is a fun little slide. Vitamin D deficiency can occur in lower latitudes in countries that are exposed to UV radiation year-round. It can occur in industrial countries like the United States and European populations where food have been fortified with vitamin D since the 1930s. Additionally, newborns through adolescence and the elderly from several regions worldwide appear to be at higher risk of vitamin D deficiency. Historically speaking, vitamin D deficiency was first recognized in the early 1600s. In the 1930s, vitamin D3 was discovered, and the fortifications of food like milk helped reduce related diseases. As population shifted to a more city-oriented lifestyle, human behavior towards sunlight exposure changed. Currently, 70% of adults say they always or usually practice at least one sun-protected behavior. Now, this picture was, like we talked about before, kind of represent what happened in the 1930s, like the Great Depression, and it's just massively different. Things have changed a lot. Okay, there's a lot of conflicting information on the best way to prevent vitamin D deficiency. The diagram on the slide and then the recommendations for the appropriate seems to be at odds with each other. So you look at here, these two kind of contradict each other. Given the potential for confusion and the general lack of awareness, identifying at-risk populations for vitamin D is essential. Typical at-risk populations for vitamin D deficiency include older age groups, postmenopausal women, skin color, breastfeeding infants, and people who live at high altitudes and athletes. Some identification procedures include assessments collected from history and information on nutrition-focused exam. The establishment of reference norms, especially for the well-trained athletes for nutrition assessment processes and future research, is a priority, especially since there's little consensus regarding what constitutes vitamin D deficiency in children, adolescent, and the athletic population. As you can see here, we have a normal anatomy for bones and rickets on this slide. The danger of these gaps in the literature could lead to severe consequences like in the athletic population. As we pointed out just a second ago, the rickets, the wrestler had a bone structure like the rickets skeleton, the damage can be catastrophic and life-altering. To help establish reference norms it's described above, this study seeks to identify the best way for athletes who spend the majority of their day indoors to meet and maintain the recommended vitamin D levels on a daily basis. The hypothesis is an athlete who trains inside and out is more likely to meet the vitamin D requirements than an athlete who only trains inside. Answering this question will allow researchers to explore the best combinations to prevent deficiencies in athletic populations and potentially in normal populations. Okay. Disorders of vitamin D are varied and they include hereditary resistances and as it turns out, acquired vitamin D deficiency is much more common than previously thought and may affect more than 50% of the population with limited sunshine and no vitamin D supplementation. Any deficiencies in the vitamin D status of athletes could lead to multiple problems and severely compromise the athlete in the future. Women, when it comes to deficiency, could lead to osteoporosis, which, if you looked at gymnastics, would be terrible, would result in bad things. Normal metabolic processes were kind of discussed before. They involve the 7-DHC, which is converted to its active form, 1,25-OHD. And there are several other studies that have focused on vitamin D. The first two studies mentioned on this slide. If you can see over here, this angle, there are 2 angle exposures affected by the position of the sun and the time of the year. The idea of the study was to mimic summer noon and winter noon to evaluate the production from summer and winter light. This would provide evidence supporting the chosen time of day, latitude, and year for the location for this IRB proposal. The next study discusses how to maximize benefits while minimizing the UV damage exposure. The data shows relatively short exposures increases vitamin D sufficiency status in white Caucasian population. This supports the use of sunlight and supplement of vitamin D status of the participants of the proposed study. The methods and procedures include the participants will be randomly selected from population as described on the slide. In order to qualify for the study, they will be screened, and once a potential participant is identified, blood will be drawn by the facilities and the physicians there. Any potential participant who completes the survey but is not found to be vitamin D deficient with the blood draw will be admitted to a nutritional counselor and with additional compensation. The blood draws will take place right as the enrollment starts. There will be no vitamin D supplementation in this study because it will defeat the entire purpose of identifying or seeing if there is actually a intake issue. As you can see, there is an NCAA wrestling mat on the slide. This is because the participants will complete daily exercise programs as well. Okay, once we have the study going and the participants meet all the inclusion criteria, they will be randomly divided into a control group and an experimental group. The difference between the control group and the experimental group will be only on the 10-minute warm-up. They'll each have their own little exercise program and diet, but they will, the control group will stay inside for the warm-up and the experimental group will head outside for the warm-up. The exposure for the experimental group will last a full 10 minutes and take place at 10 a.m. in California, LA actually. All copies of the blood tests and materials will be submitted according to HIPAA Privacy Act. The Belmont principles will be followed as we are using human subjects, and all writings will be provided at an 8th grade reading level. The risks in this study involve skin cancer, of course. There's potential because we're exposing them to the sun. So to compensate for this, we will be actually paying them a minimum wage to accommodate for their participations, and it's going to require a lot of time. There will be food and housing provided, and athletic training and blood draws will be provided at no cost to the participants. The total sample size is noted on this next slide. 176 subjects with 88 subjects in the control group and in the experimental group. The study will take place at a university in Los Angeles, and we will use NOAA projections to determine when and where this is actually going to happen. We're planning on April 2019. And according to the projections, this will be a very, very good time to do this. The intended purpose of this study is to determine if an athlete who trains inside will meet the vitamin D requirements over an athlete who only trains inside. We're going to look at a quantitative data that's going to be involved in the blood work. And an independent t-test will be used to assess the difference in 25-OHD levels after the supplementation of sun exposure between the two groups. Everything's going to be less than a 5% p-value. Then 2 nutritional surveys. There'll be a main survey that is the qualifier for this study, and there will be weekly kind of micro versions of that survey to prevent result errors such as a false positive due to unaccounted dietary supplementation. Okay, for the results, we are looking at the potential for an independent t-test will be used. The sunlight supplementations between the experimental control group, the de-identification, this will assigned to, or the de-identification process will be a random enrollment number, which will be the only piece of identification used for the duration of the study. Let's see here. There are several studies that are backing this one up. We have one that provides us the numbers to summarize the anticipated results for this proposal are a minimum of 80% of the participants will be compliant for the procedure for the full 8 weeks. Out of those who complete the study, at least 40% of the athletes will see an increased total of serum levels to a successful test level of greater than 30 nanograms per milliliter. The study is one of the very few. There have been very, very, very few people who have done studies on this type of subject, and I look forward to completing it. If these studies are successful, then the possible prevention of the severe dangers of vitamin D's deficiency can be reduced in the extensive populations that don't have access, like in the Middle East, South America, Africa, Asia, and answering this question will allow us to explore the deficiencies in athletic populations and potentially in normal populations. And here are the references. We're going to click through these real quick just so you have them. They're all in order. And there's only 5 million. And this has been a good time. I've enjoyed looking at this study, and I really, really look forward to presenting the IRB proposal. Thanks, and have a great day.